Okay, so today it's a very good day. Today, this little thing's mom and dad are coming home. And yeah, that's a very good thing. It's time for them to be back. She's a super sweet little dog, but she's very much a one pack and is completely unruly amongst the multi-pack and has been bringing chaos. So it's time for her people to come back. So this will probably be the last video over here for a while, if not ever, depending on how things work out. But yeah, so we're looking forward to her not going over there today. Sweet dog. But I'm used to hanging out with the old dogs. So it's time to leave the young pup with her family. She definitely upended the multi-pack a little bit. She is a little bit of a shithead, it turns out. She's been trying to instigate some trouble with the big dogs. I mentioned the other day that she's tried to take on Taz a few times, and Taz is a big goofball, and he does throw his weight around quite a bit to get his way when he wants a bone or something that somebody else has. Just kind of go barreling through and block them from, like if they drop a treat or something, so he can get it first, so he will. So we have to keep an eye on that. But this one is every bit as bad about that and doesn't know the waiting your turn thing. So there's been some chaos. And last night, I guess, it's kind of complicated because when she was a puppy, I tried to have her around Ziva a lot because Ziva was, trained by a very good pack. And it had solid pack dynamics, and there was a leader, and everybody had their place, and she kind of found her place in what was already existing, right? So she was taught from that pack, and she has been the best socialized of all of them. Of course, part of the issue on Gidge and Taz being socialized was Taz was about a year old from a rescue when we got him, and Gidget was 12 weeks old, and she was the last puppy in this litter of a family that had a female Australian Shepherd that they wanted to get her fixed, but they wanted her to be a mom one time before they did that. So Gidget was the last of the litter. She was $40. And yeah, like she and Ziva took to each other right away. They even were accepting of Taz when he came in, and they let Ziva be the boss. But the issue then was in December. Okay, so we got Gidget the very end of April, Taz the very beginning of May, and then come December, that's when I left for a while for the first, it was the trial run on the divorce, and getting a feel for what all I would need to do to make it happen for real, right? Of course, at the time, I thought that it was going to be that at that point in time, but my mom said that since I was coming back home to potentially get divorced, that I could not bring the new two dogs with me, so I had to leave them with my ex. So at that point, it sealed the deal on I had to go back that last time because I didn't have all my dogs with me, and my dogs are kind of a big deal to me. So, however, they stayed with him for 9 months, and while they survived, that was not unscathed. They have their own issues that we've been working on, partly related to that. And a big part of like Gidget's stuff was I started socializing her, and then it got brought to an abrupt end because then I left for 9 months. So she's kind of been skittish. So when I ended up having them all back together, because of course Ziva came with me, Like Ziva, that's the one thing that hands down all along the way, she's always been with me. And anytime anytime I tried leaving, she was with me. That was the kind of priority, right? And she was also my protector, right? She was also the reason I got my TBI, but she stepped up and was like really protective of me after, once the mind fuck started really getting worse. And so when we had to split the pack up for a little while, it did its damage. And, like, I was walking the dogs earlier today. And mind you, we've been here 6 years now, right? Been divorced and out of that situation for over 6 years. My divorce anniversary was July 30th. So, yeah. But like I noticed when we were walking, it's like Gidget and Taz, I put choke chains back on them because they are ridiculous about pulling, right? And I've been trying to get them to stop, and like other bad behaviors were picking up because they were pulling so much. So I got them on the choke chains, and they listen much better now. But Ziva's still on a regular collar. She's 12, so but like just watching the girls together, it's like there's this back and forth of each one trying to be in front because the pack leader's supposed to be in the front or whatever, and they're just it's just a very hard-headed, complicated dynamic, right? So it's like we have our own issues with our pack dynamics, but then this one adds in complete chaos. So we are more than happy for her people to be coming back today. I was thinking earlier, it's like I feel kind of bad that I didn't trust Gidget and Taz more when this one was younger. She's like 1.5 years, I think. There's a part of me that wants to say 2 years, but I'm pretty sure it's just 1.5 years. But because Taz throws his weight around so much, I didn't want him inadvertently hurting this one. And Gidget, I just didn't know how she would do. She kind of is responsive, and like when this one will get in her face, then like she'll do something, and then she immediately looks at me like, was that okay? It's like, I really wish I would have trusted, especially her, more to knock this one down a peg when it came to the bad energy and the getting wild and all that stuff. Ziva was the one that was trusted for it, but Ziva's also 12 now, so Ziva is not interested in, and now Ziva kind of shuts down anytime this one's around just because there's so much chaotic energy. I've been thinking a lot today about how that's the whole boundaries thing, right? This one hasn't been taught boundaries at all. So when she's around the big dogs, she gets all wound up in their space and all that stuff, and because she doesn't respect boundaries. She hasn't been taught boundaries. So when she is with my cousin's dog, who is like 1 year or 2 older, they play hard and lots of rough and tumble, and kind of nonstop. And she wants to play all the time. I mean, granted, herding dogs have tons of energy anyway, and if you're not burning it off, it comes out in often bad behaviors. So like Ziva and Taz figured out how to get into the trash can, and Ziva likes to grab the bag that was on the outside of the old trash can we had, and she'd start jerking on it, and it was like all the stuff she wanted would come out. So like those kind of deviant things. She's also, at one point in time, I had a sea salt and caramel chocolate bar that I was looking forward to. I had like a little piece off of it, and then it was in this drawer in my nightstand. And she got in it and ate the whole thing. It's like, damn it. Yeah, so she does know drawers. She used to be able to get on the table without having an assist, but she's 12 now, so she has to have an assist if she's going to get on the table to be a deviant, which, if everybody remembers to tuck them in, it's not a problem. Stop leaving food or things that she might want up there. Her most recent thing, mind you, she's 12. My dad apparently left a piece of dog treat on his desk because he was using it to bribe the rescue dog to come in from outside, right? So he was trying to use the treats as a means to get the other dog in the house. At some point, he left it on his desk. Ziva's nose works very well. And now Ziva is making it a habit to get on the desk to see if there's anything else left up there. So it's like, that wasn't an issue before, but now the one time was an issue, so now that's an issue too, right? So, yeah, anyway. I did, 11, I did like a 17-minute video, and then I was like, this is a whole lot of dogs today, but it's like, I started all over and I'm still talking about dogs, so what the fuck is going on, right? Anyway, short story long. This one's parents are coming home today, and I'm really happy. I just took a pause. Like, see, there's like several things that I've been thinking about wanting to talk about today. Aside from dogs, like I don't know why that became the focal point for so much today. But it did. But I'm trying not to make that the entire video. I went over and skated this morning at the school, and I don't know what was going on, but like there was like a trailer that's connected to the fire department was over there. And there were just a bunch of vehicles, and you know, of course, the trailer or the truck with the trailer just pulled in across a bunch of slots because, you know, that's long. And then like there was another truck with a different kind of trailer next to it, but then there were like a bunch of cars and other vehicles just with where people were. It was like families, and it seemed like firefighter families. But I don't know what they were doing down there. I don't know where they were going. There would be a collection of them, and then they would disappear. And the fire department is about a half mile to a mile down the road the other direction. So it's like I don't feel like they were going that way, because that's a long way to go for the thing that was going on at the fire department, because they had one of those fire prevention days today where it's opened up to the community. But I don't know what's going on. I just know it complicated my skate a little bit because there were so many cars coming in and out that I was not going the same path. Well, I did like the first 3 miles, and then the last one I kind of the parking situation was getting busier at that point in time, so I just made a different trek before I decided to wrap it up and be done. Oh, I know. So yes, okay, I have a while back, I think back in the spring, I got these 3 orchids that were at Walmart on clearance. They were all like $5 each, and they're big ones. So I was like, yeah. So I got them, and 2 of them are in great shape. And the 3rd one has had really droopy leaves, and they're wrinkly, and it's like, what the heck is going on with this plant? And it's kind of been concerning me for a little while. I'm trying to figure out if there's something I can do to make it better, or is it just going to die on me? And last night, I moved it over to the ledge in front of my window, which, I have blackout curtains, so when I open the curtains, whenever I get up, the sun's usually not shining directly in the window anymore at that point. So it's not direct light, right? So I just figured it would be okay over there, but it's like, I don't know. I don't know if it's got too much cold with the AC, but that doesn't seem to make sense because the other two are doing really good. But it was something that I was kind of concerned about. Anyway, when I picked it up last night, just for whatever reason, I pick it up, and as I'm carrying it over to this other spot, it's just like, please don't die. And, like actually speaking to the plant. So I put it down and I go over to sit back on my bed, and then I'm thinking, and then it occurs to me, it's like, did I Google, like the last time I searched for, troubleshooting purposes with this orchid, it's like, what? I don't remember what I looked up. I don't remember it saying anything in particular. So I decided to try it again with wilty, wrinkly leaves. And the AI suggestion that pops up immediately takes me to this video where it's talking about probably dehydrated. And, she showed, the girl that did the video showed an example of one, and it looked exactly like what was going on with this one. And she said it was very dehydrated. So, it's like a little minute-long video or whatever. Well, probably more than that, but, she's talking about soaking it in water for a while. And she said when she came back at the end of it, she said it took 3 days of soaking, but it was finally, hydrated again, and like the leaves were like they're supposed to be, and the roots were plumped up again and everything. It's like, okay. So I went ahead and put it in water. Now, I had kind of thought that might be part of the issue the other day, and I thought part of it too was that it wasn't in the soil as much as I thought it was. It's like the plant was entirely on top of the orchid bark stuff that it was planted in, and I feel like I'm missing a key piece on repotting them that I have yet to figure out, but I will get there. But I did fix it the other day, so more of the roots are actually in the dirt a little bit, because it was just completely on top of it. It's like, this is not ideal. So when I did that, I was thinking, it's like, feels like feels a little dry, right? So I did soak it for a little bit, but I'm afraid of overwatering the things, because everything you see with the damn orchids is you just give it like an ice cube a week and it's supposed to be good, right? I mean, I know from experience that that's not entirely accurate, although I probably didn't do it as... Okay, first off, I get the ice cubes worth of water, but then what about the temperature difference on, like, why would you put an ice cube in the plant? That seems, especially a tropical plant, that seems a little silly. Anyway, when I was in Alabama, actually, I think even the house we got the first, after we first got married, the rental we were staying in, I had some, and it seemed like they were doing really good for a while, and then whatever the switch was, lost them. But I had learned back then that that's a silly thing to use. It's just an ice cube a week. And then of course that issue, or that question, was posed of, it's a tropical plant, you're putting an ice cube in it, isn't that not ideal for temperatures? But like I had read somewhere in like a Facebook group or something where that talked about soaking them. And so I started doing that. It's like, hey, that seems to work. But, depending on how it gets repotted, the substance doesn't always seem to or like its planting soil doesn't always seem to work very well on that shift, which is why I got to work on this, right? And that's one of those things I've been thinking about for a while. It's like I have a bunch of plants, and most of them I have gotten when they're like on clearance or something, because I really am partial to clearance plants. But there were some of them that I ended up acquiring because of my grandfather's funeral or whatever. Of course, my grandma had a bunch of plants in the room for a while, and then she was just they spent some time watering them at first, and then eventually they just got tired of them, stopped doing anything with them. And then one day my mom's like, do you want these? It's like, yeah, I'd like plants. If you're done with them, I will take them. So I ended up with all these funeral plants, and there were like some of them that had like, I don't know, like 4 different plants in them. Not all of the different plants have made it. And some of those baskets are a little struggling at the moment, but I'm trying to do better. There was just a span of time where there was a whole lot going on, and I didn't get to pay enough attention to them. And it kind of became this thing of, when's the last time I watered that? It's looking droopy. I need to put some water in it, right? And the peace lilies were the ones that were like the most obvious, because, you know, I learned with one that I had in Alabama that they are very dramatic. So when they get thirsty, they like completely wilt. And, you know, you put a little water in them, and then, hey, suddenly they're back. So I've been working on these things, right? So it's like as soon as the plants would start to droop, it's like, yep, probably been a little bit longer than it should have been, you know. But then also, is the AC in the immediate room an issue at all with any of them? So far, it doesn't seem like it is, except for the aloe. The aloe's outside right now. But that's probably more just a lighting thing in general. I was troubleshooting the aloe plant today, and I did not get I didn't get a sufficient answer yet. So it's still a work in progress. But for the time being, it's nice outside, so it's hanging out outside. I was thinking, since I think my room is probably a little, well, okay, so the thing says outside temperatures between 55 and 80 degrees. So that shouldn't be an issue if, you know, I set my little AC unit to like 62 at bedtime. But, I mean, it's 62 on the unit, but the clock only ever goes down to like 66, maybe 65. So it's like the little thermometer on the clock. So it's like, how accurate is this even? Maybe I should take the other one back in there and try it that way again. I don't know, but I was thinking today, it's like, would it be better to put it on top of the bird cage? Because that's right in front of the window in the other room. But then that window doesn't, or that room doesn't get as much light either. So then it's like, is it an AC thing? I mean, that's still, I haven't ruled that out yet. Or questions on the watering. I don't know. But still working on it. But I feel really strongly here lately that I'm supposed to spend some more time figuring out what's going on with the plants too, and trying to figure out how to make them happy again. So at one point in time, I knew how to do it. I think part of the issue I have at my parents' house is that it's so dry, and you know, my room gets the best lighting of all the house, to be honest. So it's like the only room they can be in, with the exception of if they're hanging in the living room, which we haven't done that in years, or on top of the birdcage. That's the best I got. But like when I was in the house in Wanamaker, we had this room. Okay, so there was the laundry room, right? And it had this weird closet thing that didn't have a door on it, but it ended up being perfect for the cat litter boxes. So we had like this little thing where the cat could get in and Ziva couldn't get into it. But like there was all this space. It had like the long wall was made up of like 4 windows in the door, I think. And then the other wall had like 2 windows that were like on the east side of the house. So it was like perfect for plants. Right? So I had like this huge collection of plants for a long time. Like at one point there's like almost 60 of them. And I really enjoyed them. And for some reason it was easier to make it work. But then when I had to move back in with my parents while my ex went to job training in Germany, the plants did not make it. Most of them. Of course, part of that was wall-to-wall furniture and didn't have any sufficient places to put them, as well as like just the climate being so much drier than the other space had been, and just all sorts of other stuff. But yeah, so it's like, honestly, I don't know what my deal is today. I don't know what to talk about. So why am I talking about all of these things? And okay, so yesterday on my video I returned to the thing that I said I was going to try to, move on and not go back to the pessimistic stuff anymore. And so I was, trying to, the day before, for when I said, what does that leave for me to do, to talk about all these things if I'm not going back to the pessimistic part of things, right? So yesterday I revisited it enough to explain the silly things that happened after deciding that I wanted to do things differently. And then, just the things that popped up that would kind of seemed like the universe was testing me, like, are you sure? Are you really going to move on? Right? But for like the sake of the story, I went ahead and I reverted back enough to give the backstory so then I could explain these other things within that context of the story. And then it was like just trying to figure out, I think, where to go. Right? What, like, okay, so if I'm choosing to not shift back to the negative all the time, then what does that leave? Well, apparently we're going to talk a lot about dogs and plants today. Which honestly, that kind of makes sense for, okay, one thing that I've been thinking a lot, especially with spending time with this little corgi, who was a puppy that, was purchased as a puppy, so she's not had a rough life or anything, right? Whereas Taz was a rescue, so he knows the experience of not being wanted, and he's very grateful for having a home, right? So that, and like Piper, she's not trying to own the pack or anything. She just wants to know how she fits into it, right? So, I was thinking about, in spending this time with this little puppy that's never known a rough life, just hasn't been taught good boundaries. But I was just thinking about like how I have the big preference for rescues. And the biggest thing is because, there's something that is an issue, whether, confidence or whatever else. You don't know what their background is, or maybe you have a limited insight to what it was. Taz, I don't think he was hugely abused. I think somebody got him not really knowing what healers are bred for, and he was too much for them, and then they decided they didn't want him. But then, he had that experience of people taking him on trial runs and, not wanting to keep him for whatever reason. And honestly, for that reason, he was meant to be with me. In my first attempt at the video today, I talked about how I'm still pretty sure that he is like Chance reincarnated. And it's like little silly things, like everybody who knew Chance has at some point struggled to come up with Taz's name and said Chance instead. Like every single one of us. And, like that seems like a silly little thing, but, I feel like there's more. I feel like with anything, like all the little silly things that happen in life, or, even the not so silly things, I feel like a lot of times there are bigger connections that we're not even immediately aware of, right? So like one of the things that comes to mind specifically on this was when I was 8, I almost drowned in the ocean. Got caught in an undertow, and my dad was nearby, and then he also got caught in the undertow while trying to save me, and then, we both almost drowned, and the family friend had to rescue us. And I've talked about that story on here several times because that's the family friend. The family friend that rescued us was the one that died last year. This is kind of a weird whole experience. And, while I think before he passed away, there was a day we went over to the hospital to see him when he was in a coma and talked to his daughters, and they didn't know that story because he didn't talk about it. That's something that, it was huge for me. And my mom was always like, well, your dad was there too. Your dad almost drowned too. You kept throwing him in. It's like, but I don't think you really appreciate the fact that it's the story. And my dad wasn't the one choosing to tell it to these people either. And yes, he could have spoke up and said he was also there or whatever, but he just is that information that he wants to share with everybody, whatever. Right. So whatever. But anyway, when we shared the story, his daughters, especially the one that was on that trip with us, wasn't aware of it. But I've thought many times about that situation. I think that it was kind of a callback to another lifetime where I did drown at that age. And I say that because I have had other, when I was in the water struggling, and of course, you see it's this green brown ocean, right? So it's like all you can see is the color of the water, and just something about that space just felt like there was something much deeper than what was going on just in that moment, which is a traumatic moment anyway, because you almost died in the ocean at 8 years old. So, there again, back in that wonderful time frame of all the things that were essentially going wrong and led me to the point of it's like I don't feel like I've ever doubted the existence of God. But there was a span of time where everything seemed to point to this idea that God didn't like me. So if God didn't like me, then I didn't like God, right? So that was when everything started going wrong when I was 8. That was the big thing. It's like, God doesn't like me, I don't like God, right? And then when I was 12, inviting in the demons, that kind of thing. It takes you some dark places. But one of the biggest things on that end was when, when I was trying to be the good church girl afterwards, right? I was trying to get rid of this whole thing that had happened, the inviting into the demons or whatever, if you will. And that was the biggest thing was it's like, it didn't matter how much I asked for forgiveness or anything. It's like it didn't go away. It's like I still felt trapped in that. There was a very deep sense of apathy and disconnection. But it's the more I went to church and tried to make it right, the more I had issues with making sense of it and, trying to come out of it, honestly. So it's like I was trying to buy into this idea from, I gotta show you this is silly. Not sure what this little foot on my foot thing is about. Kindly disregard the former hairball spot on the carpet till little Miss Thang ate it the other day. That was gross. She got tipped before I had the chance to go grab something. It's like, oh, cool. But yeah, it was like, once I tried to undo the bad decision that I made, then I couldn't. It's like, well, I'm doing the things that the church is telling me that I have to do to be acceptable, and it's still not working. Right? And so my brother and I have had this conversation a bunch too with, okay, so we talk more on the end of metal music when it comes to this whole point. Looks like my makeup's jacked up, but it might also just be, I'm like, oh no, that's over there. I have like a random freckle or whatever you want to call that, and mole by my eye. But I don't know when that showed up. It just all at once I've noticed it's there, and it's like, that's weird. Cool. But anyway, like my brother and I, like we've had these conversations about like, that's kind of the point of like metal, right? So I spent a lot of time talking about like metal music and whatnot, and how I am confident that that's where the changes are coming from, right? So, I've talked recently about how with the dots that I've been connecting, it seems as though religion, especially Christianity, is kind of, basically the gatekeepers of hell, because this existence of forgetting who we are, forgetting our connectedness to everything is hell, because we don't realize that we're still connected to everything, right? So we think we're abandoned. We don't know who we are or what we're here to do, and we're basically fed these stories of what we have to do to be successful and to have a worthwhile life. But then, I've spent my whole life trying to follow those rules and to be acceptable, and it's not worked out for me. It's not panned out that way at all. And I've talked about that with like the school stuff, right? So when I was in high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do after high school. But, what I did know was I had to go to undergrad. I didn't know who I was, what I wanted to do, what I would pursue on that end. None of those things did I know. But my mom said it was her life's biggest regret that she hadn't gone to college after high school. So me and my brother didn't have a choice. That was what we were going to do. We went to college. We didn't know who we were or what we wanted to do, so we kind of floundered for a little while. He changed his major every semester, so 8 semesters of changing his major. He ended up not graduating. I at least had it honed down a little more. I had the same things or the same set of things that I kept finding myself messing around with. Psychology, sociology, philosophy, religious studies, those things. So, I ended up, I think my sophomore year, I settled on psychology and religious studies with minors in creative writing and interpersonal relations, because they seemed, it seemed like things I was interested in, right? So I'd gone to church a lot with my drumline peers, and the church thing was increasingly important back then, so I figured maybe I should learn more about this stuff, right? And then psychology, because I had a psychology teacher in high school that I really liked, and the stuff I was learning about was really interesting, so we'll continue that too. The creative writing, because I always had the sense that writing was somehow involved with it, but I didn't I wasn't able to commit to it more than just a minor. I mean, granted, it was a big minor because I want to say that, like, okay, so for most minors, I want to say it's like 15 credit hours at minimum. And that one was like, I want to say it was like 28 or something. It felt substantially more. But it was something I was interested in. And so I was like, okay, we'll mess with that a little bit, I guess. While I was doing that, I thought maybe there was something more to it that I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't really know how to do it more than that. And what was I going to do with an English degree? I didn't want to teach or anything. Right. So I just settled with the creative writing minor. And our interpersonal relations thing, that was mainly because it was one of those that was just so vague and there was so much that counted for it. And I had a bunch of stuff that would count for it. So it's just like, hey, double majoring, why not double minor too? So we went that route, right? But like, okay, so we went to school, and of course, I refused to stay at home, right? My brother went to IUPUI so he could live at home, and he worked and didn't have to take out all the student loans that I did. I took out student loans because there was no way in hell I was going to stay living with my mother when there was so much that was being brought to my attention through high school stuff, right? Like the when she said with the drumline stuff that I deserve this as much as you do, right? And pretty much completely knocked me out of having been there, let alone as one of the leaders for this whole drumline program that we had, that we won the school's first state championship with, and that we won this world championship the next year with. It's like, as soon as she said that didn't matter anymore. It's like, okay, so this is not my thing. Now what? Right? I thought I was really connected to music at some level. Of course, when I did marching band with people that were actually good at music, is like, yeah, I'm not trying to compete with these. I can't read music, so this is not my thing. So, and it was okay, like that. The music thing, the reading music. I was like, I could figure it out, but it took my brain so long to process it that I was never good at reading music. So it was like, so when we were learning new music for, for band and drumline, I would like cheat and write in all the notes above, and based on where it was on the freaking scale, I could figure out where I was at on the keyboard. But yeah, like I couldn't just translate it from looking at it. It was like, I don't know, it was like a foreign language, honestly. So I just never picked up, since I wasn't able to read music once I got to the place where people were able to read music, because I suck. I can't do that. I got nothing. So I abandoned ship and went another way, right? It was just abandoned ship on the band end of things. I did marching band my first semester. I've talked about it a few times because there were a couple of friends that have been extremely relevant for some of the stories that I've been talking about on here. But anyway, like, just going back to that point, like with my conversation with my brother, it's like, there's so many things that we did just because we were told we had to. We didn't know anything about who we were or what we wanted from life. It was just following whatever whim came up because we weren't encouraged to actually know who we were and what we wanted from life. Oh, you can want something from life? That's what the hell? Cool. Wish somebody would have told me that sooner. But instead it was just like drifting, right? Aimlessly drifting for a good 40 years before I started making sense of anything. Going back to that knowing, the 3 knowings from high school, there again, that senior year, I knew that Tyler was going to die in our mid-30s, and it would be his death that brought everybody together for a time. And then I would be 40 before I started to make sense of my life. And so those two things came true. I've talked about the group of 5 guys many times. That's the twin flame connection I discovered when I was skating. I didn't discover the twin flame connection then. I had happened across this guy's energy for like just listening to music, and then this thing came up somewhere along the way, and it's like I wasn't going to get social media beyond Facebook. And then I got this really strong sense in 2020 that, yeah, you are. You're going to get Instagram. It's like, what the fuck do you do on Instagram? So I didn't really want any more social media because it's kind of a time suck, right? So it's like, I just felt like I was supposed to, so I did. And then I started following a bunch of bands and musicians and whatnot. And then it's like, okay, so from there, this thing pops up one day where, he had like some stories and stuff that he'd posted. It's like, I made a offhand remark to a friend, like a very short-lived friend that helped clear the demon. Back in 2021, I said something about maybe I should manifest one of those, because there's something about this dude seemed familiar and was intriguing, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but something to the effect of it was a very bad idea, and yeah, right, he's a musician, so you're not supposed to take those kinds seriously anyway, right? But then he ends up doing this live stream that I ended up checking out. I've talked about many times about feeling like the little mouse in the room, and all at once the lights flip on and it's like, exposed, right? So being in that space, right? But then like the next thing that was because when he was getting ready to close out the live stream, I said something and he responded. So then it was like, I've been spotted. And it was this whole weird thing. And then he started showing up in dreams, like a good 7 or so. They were, hey, behave yourself. They were like, in that time frame, there were at least 2 that I remembered that like really stayed with me. And like the first one, I don't think it was the first one. I think the first one was the first one in the bathroom where he was like cleaning. He was in the bathroom cleaning. And I was in the bathroom stall and mainly hiding. But then it was like, he was in there, and I remember this sense of like panic at why was he in there? And then, there's been a whole bunch of things with that, but that was like the first one. But then the second one, was the one that I've talked on here about a lot, a lot. The one where I was sitting on a couch with my ex, and this guy and like 3 of the other members of one of the bands that he's in are on stools behind this couch. And like the first time, I was so infuriated at my ex that was basically the focus on the dream. But I was also vaguely aware that these guys were behind us. And it's like, what the hell is this all about? Right? So it's like, I wasn't able to register at that point in time. However, in meditations, I've discovered I can go back into the dream. Done that like 4 times. And like each time it took on like a different level of, whatever. Like the first I was distracted by the fact that I was so angry at my ex, and I was just aware of these guys there, and I was kind of perplexed, I guess, at the idea that they were there, because I don't know why they were there. Then the next time I went into it, it's like I was still extremely aware of the anger toward my ex, but I was able to receive the message, if you will, from the twin flame. Now I realize that connection. I didn't realize that before. So, when I went back into the dream, it's like that was later. Actually, I think when I started going back into the dream, I did know of him as the twin flame at that point in time, but the original having of the dream, I was not aware of that. I was just like, why are these guys in this dream? This is weird. But the next time I went into it, he said, it's like, he said specifically to me, and it was like he couldn't focus on me or anything, but he said, if you need my help, let me know. And I said, I feel like I need to do this on my own. And, so that was just kind of the end of it, right? But I was still extremely aware of my ex in that space, right? So then, it felt like that was somehow what he was saying if I needed help with, to let him know. But then the thing happened in real life with the family friend that I mentioned earlier with the drowning or near drowning experience, where he said, or where that guy died, and we went to the celebration of life, and that other guy that had been a friend of my parents and this other couple, he and his wife were there, and it's hot on the one side of the table, so he gets up and comes over to the shade in the other side, which is by me and my mom. And just him standing there, like he wasn't doing anything or being inappropriate, really. He was just, his presence just made me uncomfortable. So then, I'm trying to think back to conversations where, like in the Inner Path group, like one point we were talking, this was a side note or a conversation that happened not in class, but like at the dinner thing afterwards, where somebody was talking about expanding your energy to fill the space you're in. And I was trying to figure out how to do that, right? This guy was out there, and he was making me uncomfortable, so I'm trying to think through how that was possible, because I didn't really know how to do that, right? We just talked about it being a possible thing. But what I did have was this dream thing where the twin flame said, if you need my help, let me know. So then I was like, okay. It's like, he's making me uncomfortable. What can I do to make him go away? I didn't have to do anything. It's just that, putting that thought out into the universe was enough to where, within just a few seconds, he went over and sat back down by his wife. And within a couple minutes, he was looking like really anxious. And he looked at his wife and said, we need to leave. And then that was it. It was like, oh, so that does work then. Like, all you do is just ask for help and bam, you get the help. Cool. So that's kind of nice. And then, the next time, it's like we were kind of talking to each other. It was like that we were aware of each other, and it was like we were talking through a fog. And it was just like really dreamy and kind of a weird feeling. And then there was another day that I went back into it, and he his eyes, he locked in on me. It's like I just felt this rush of energy just pass through me, through my entire system. It was like, whoa. That was a really intense feeling, right? But yeah, it was just kind of a weird thing, right? So okay, how did I get to the dreams? Shit, I don't even know. Just kind of wandering through them now. That's what I do. I wander. 2021, the dreams. Yep, that was the big dream. Those were the two big dreams, but that stayed with me. But there were 7, and I know that because I sent myself messages every single time. I used to try to keep track of any dreams. I still do to an extent, but I'm not as good about writing them. If it really stands out, or if something stands out about it. There was, when I was waking up the other day, it was this weird thing where I had, the Avatar song, Tonight We Must Be Warriors, stuck in my head, and it was just playing over and over again. And I don't know what the context of anything else was, but it was like a message. And honestly, it felt like kind of like whatever's going on in the world today, this ascension path that so many of us are on, it seemed like it was connected with that, and fighting the spiritual battles, if you will, to overcome the humanness, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, I might as well wander that way, I guess. 55 minutes, I could wrap it up, but why do that when I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about music and wanting to talk about more with it lately. I've talked on here several times about, I might have even mentioned it in this video, crap, about, basically, how I think Christians are actually the gatekeepers of hell, and hell is this existence where we are kept oblivious to who we actually are and what we're here to do and all those things, right? So they keep dumping these ideas on us that are, basically just to keep us separated from the truth of who we are. And so I feel like metal music is always where the change was going to come from, this whole ascension path, because we've spent our whole life being made to believe we're less than, or we're going to hell for something stupid, like what kind of music we want to listen to or whatever. On that end, my brother and I, he was always into metal a lot more than I was. He's chronically the reason I listen to a bunch of, or I get introduced to a bunch of different things. He introduced me to Metallica when I was 8, right? And the Unforgiven, that always, I felt it. It's I feel this all the way through. It's somebody out there gets it. This is awesome, right? So then, and Enter Sandman, of course. And then he was also the one that introduced me to Rammstein and Du Hast. Yes. So, one of the more recent, one of my big favorites at this point in time, of course, is Rotting Christ and Apage Satana, as I've talked about that one so many times. And especially, it's basically, so all of these things, the different songs that I've been introduced to along the way, it's feeling resonance with them at some level is why they were so important. The Unforgiven, right? I'm not going to sing it. Just thinking through the lyrics. But it's all the things where there's been resonance. It's going back to, I had to look up Mr. Big the other day and what kind of music they technically fell under, and apparently it was glam metal. It's hey, I'll take it, whatever. Always loved them, the hair bands, all that stuff, from the 80s. But Mr. Big, To Be With You, was this huge thing for me because the year that came out, and I did not realize it was the year that it came out. That was when all the shit with my cousin started up, and he started spreading rumors about me and everything. So then that line that in the song of "Wake Up, Who Cares About Little Boys That Talk Too Much," it's that always hit, and I still love that song. But it's for years that song has been with me, and only after I started, doing this whole YouTube thing and starting processing through some of the stories and one day I was okay, so what year did that even come out? Oh, 91. That would have been the year I was 8. and or the year I turned 8, and then like, you know, all that stuff, you know, came up. It's like, oh, you know, and then going back to the Unforgiven, I think that was also the same year. Won't commit to that 1,000%, but I feel pretty confident, but not enough to say that yes, it was. But I feel like I saw that recently, that it was around that time frame. So it was like all these little breadcrumbs along the way, right? So it's like, you know, I heard something the other day that was talking about how music, art, writing, any of those things, that's a means of channeling, right? So you're actively channeling the divine, which makes perfect sense. And especially, okay, so I keep pulling this card in the Animal Apothecary deck. Always the Animal Apothecary deck. The Abundance card. And it talks about being in the flow. It says, when we flow, we channel. And that is to channel is to allow the divine to express itself through us. It's like, that makes perfect sense. Especially when you start connecting like with the music and all the things. It's like, you know, in the time frames, it's like the time that I needed those, you know, lines or whatever, and then there they are. And it's like, huh. And I know I'm not the only person that those lines were like essential for. I mean, because there's a reason it was put into a song, you know, and largely a part of that reason was we're all connected. And so somebody else was going through something similar, you know, some other brand of it perhaps, but, you know, essentially coming back to all the dumb things that little dumb boys are able to say and get away with because, you know, at some level, I know I have talked on here many times about how his word was automatically accepted as true. It didn't matter that he was notorious for lying at all. It was the boy said it, so therefore it had to be true. And my word was rendered nothing, like shit, right? So like I wasn't able to, like, that was one of the earliest things where I was not able to use my voice, and it was actively silenced at a time where it would have mattered. So, you know, then to start piecing together all these things with the things that have kept me moving forward, right? And okay, going back to the metal music part specifically, because our mom demonized my brother's music a whole lot, right? Even he used to listen to Creed a lot at one point in time, and she was talking about how they were devil worshippers. It's like, I'm pretty confident that's not the case, because wasn't Scott Stapp a Christian or whatever? So it's like, you know, my brother and I was just always like, there's something weird going on here. So like those little things, like all the things that people have wanted us to believe that like this whole culture essentially is bad, right? This metal music and everything. But it's like, metal's literally the substance that gets refined by the fire. So on that end, it's kind of interesting to think that this is actually where the changes are coming from, right? So it's not from Christianity that wants to keep you locked into this idea of you're not good enough and you need something outside of you to save you. Because like the rest of us, we've already been through hell. You can't throw anything at me that I haven't already been through and dealt with at this point in time. So we're gonna, you know, the biggest thing is me learning to come to terms with who I am in spite of what everybody tried to force me to believe about myself, right? So like there was this big span of time where, you know, my life wanted me to believe that I was a whore. Not really because of anything I'd actually done, just because, you know, that's what they wanted for girls and women, right? You're supposed to be kept completely ignorant of anything, and they want you to believe that you're a whore. So You don't do things to make the illusion look bad, right? You don't speak out against somebody and say the truth that might embarrass the crotchety old white man that, wants to exist and think his shit don't stink and just look like everything is, like his family is all together and all that bullshit, right? That kind of stuff. I've talked about how, I get messages a lot, right? And it's like, what does that look like? What does it sound like? Right? But a lot of times it is exactly that, through music stuff, right? So like a line perhaps sticks with me, and that's the thing that stays, right? Or a while back, the song Satanized by Ghost, when it came out, I think, I kept, every single time I got in the car, it seemed like that song was on. It's like, there is a message here. So one day I was like, all right, so what is it? And then it was just the idea that it doesn't matter what you say or do. The people that don't want to like you or whatever you're here to do, they're going to choose to demonize you in whatever way they can get away with, just because they don't like you, because they don't like what you have to say, right? So it doesn't matter. Then I think I ended up hearing on the radio, they were talking about that song's actually about falling in love and like just how it changes your behavior and all this stuff. It's like, and then you're doing things that you don't even recognize anymore because you're in this other space. It's like, that makes perfect sense. But like what it looked like initially was just every single time I got in the car, the song was on the radio. It's like, what's going on? There's something here. And then, yeah, so it's like, that's basically life though. And especially with the gatekeepers, the gatekeepers of hell, they want to keep you thinking that you are worthless and that nothing you ever do is good enough, right? So it's like right now with my mom, she knows I've disconnected and she doesn't have access to my energy and she doesn't know how to get it back. She doesn't know exactly what's going on or what I'm doing. She just knows that what she says and does not affect me like it used to. Used to, I was very controllable. And now it's kind of like, not so much, right? So it's like the things that I've used to actively protect my energy and to start pushing back against my family, where they've, kept me locked into just really toxic beliefs. And, the lack of boundaries, right? That's the biggest thing. Since I started setting boundaries, they don't like that, and my mom keeps wanting to blame my sister-in-law for why my brother left, but I'm more the reason that he left than she is. And it was because I started setting boundaries, because the whole twin flame thing, started setting boundaries, started paying attention to what was really going on and not getting drugged back into the chaos. It's like, once I realized that it was just, they were trying to keep me locked into the chaos so I couldn't ever get out of it and do better and start actively making choices for myself, they don't like that, right? So then what I started to do, because the voice is powerful, right? So I start talking to my brother about what I'm noticing, and then he starts noticing it. It's like, so, and I set him up with the things to help him with his boundaries, especially with the family. And then once he made the decision to go, that was it. It's like, he's a Capricorn, that goat mentality there, stubborn. Once they set their mind on something, that's it. And like the biggest thing with that was realizing that as long as he was in this town with our family nearby, he and his wife weren't going to be able to raise Gracie as they wanted to, right? So what does that leave? That leaves, it's time to go. Yeah, so anyway, like I'm still working on this part of the things. Like, I know it's all completely wrapped up in music and this whole ascension thing, and then it's like, and even, my brother and I've talked a lot about like the different types of metal and whatnot, because he tends to go to a lot more heavier, I guess I listen more metalcore and what does Electric Callboy count as now? I love them. I don't even know what they count as, but he listens to a lot more like black metal, death metal. I still listen to that stuff, and he'll listen to like the stuff that I send his way too, but it's I pretty much latch on to like all of it. It's like, ooh, what am I learning today? Right? So like Rotting Christ, what I learned was, okay, Apage Satana means begone Satan. It's like, huh. So then when I'm walking around the cemetery, walking my dogs, and I have the song playing, not loud enough that the guy across the way could hear it, and yet he was looking really uncomfortable. It's like, there's something to this. And then I like look up the lyrics, and like it translates to the Lord's Prayer. It's like, huh, see? So that's like where a lot of this information is even coming from, is just realizing what's already there, right? So it's like, it might look and sound like it's kind of mocking Christianity and whatnot, and I guess in a way it kind of is. But it's like their own ignorance that keeps them there. So, yeah, whatever. Oh, I'm going to say this. Okay, so I watched this video the other day. Oh, she already moved. This dog flipped her head around like, what the fuck are we talking about now? Like, that was a big lead up. Where are we going? 4:30. Oh, crap. Anyway, so I watched this video the other day, and it was this numerology chick, and I like her channel, and I like the stuff she's talking about with numerology and whatnot, but then she like threw out this thing about how sad she is about this whole Charlie Kirk thing, right? So I've talked about that a few times on here, and I tend to fall more into the camp of, okay, before that, the thing she said that kind of irritated me was, she was talking about how, I know most of my followers are empaths, and because of this, you're all hurting about this too, and you wondering how this thing could happen, and blah, blah, blah. And sad for the situation. It's like, no, I'm beyond the sad thing. It's like, what I see is like, okay, with my father and with my parents, you're getting what you're putting out in the world, right? So you've gotten away with thinking that it's okay to treat people like shit, to gaslight them into doing whatever you want them to do to keep the illusion alive. But then when it comes down to it, you're kind of sending some hateful messages, right? Like, the one thing that I saw of his, like, because I didn't really know who he was until I think my dad had him on TV. And the first thing that I saw of him talking was talking down about Taylor Swift and hoping that she, does the right thing when she gets married and whatnot, and, takes his name and all these things. It's like, she's like, I love it when she contributes. It's like, she's like insanely successful. And you're trying to say that she's not doing something right because she's a woman, and obviously she's not just sacrificing all of her power to some man or whatnot. So since she's now looking at getting married, right? So now he's saying that she needs to, step up and do the right thing to bring her followers around to, the God and blah, 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 and all that bullshit, right? I don't remember all of what he said. I remember it pissed me off real quick. And then, seeing a lot of things that were talking about, where he'd said something to the effect of a certain amount of gun deaths are necessary and worthwhile to keep the Second Amendment rights and all that stuff. It's like, what I see is that's somebody that spoke into existence what he wanted from life, right? He wanted it for everybody else. Why wouldn't it come back to him? So, no, I don't feel bad about that. Because what I've learned in my lifetime of being a fucking empath is you tend to get pulled around by people because you feel their pain, to some degree the pain that is driving them forward, and you sacrifice yourself over and over and over again because you're trying to fit what you're told you have to. But that's bullshit. Because, okay, going back to that, a good tree cannot produce bad fruit, and a bad tree cannot produce good fruit. Right? So, when I've talked about my family so often on here, it's like, they're literally just expecting people to cater to their bullshit. That's what my grandfather wanted. That's what my father wants. Speaking of my father, I moved my dog crate for my skating stuff to dry out on, right? And he left his water bottle that, he just probably only had a sip out of. Just left it right there on top of my stuff. And keeps hanging canes on the thing for dog leashes because he is pissed that I am not just bending over backwards to clean up after him. And I'm not going to do it. And this is exactly why. Because it's like, I went along with everything my entire life because I was trying to help them, because I saw the wound that they were living from, and I knew that there was some level of hurt that they were operating from, and they never moved beyond it. But what I discovered is it was at the expense of myself, right? The more I bent over backwards for everybody else, the less value they saw in me, right? So it's like, give an inch, they take a mile, right? And the more you go out of your way for people to help them, especially at the expense of yourself, the less value they see in what you do and what you have to offer. So, if you're putting negativity out there, I'm not going to feel bad anymore. That was a lesson that I got last year with my uncle's death, when I was like, I feel like I am, at some level, I am a healer and I am supposed to be able to do something about this, but I can't do anything about this. And I feel like that's specifically why I've been blocked from these gifts in this lifetime so much, is because I had to learn discernment, right? So the people that are just taking advantage and that just take, because that's what they want you to do. So they, keep you locked into the idea of this religion and that you have to have this thing outside of yourself to save you, which ultimately prevents you from stepping into the fullness of who you are, and from realizing the full extent of who you are and what you came here to do, so you can actually do it, right? So it's like all the things that I bought into that I just did and, I just continued to do because that's what I was told I had to do to be successful, but it got me nowhere, right? So it's discernment, and sometimes, going back to my uncle, it's like when I wanted to be able to do something to help that situation with my aunt and my uncle and all this stuff, it's like he made his decisions, and he always, like I've talked many times about, he was always the one that, when anybody would say, hey, Dave, how you doing? Not a damn bit of good, right? Always something negative, right? So if that's all you're putting out into the world, it's eventually going to catch up to you, right? And especially when the types like me, like the ones that I'm assuming are probably going to find their way to my channel most often, that do similar things, we're not supposed to fix it for everybody else. Okay, so Falling in Reverse has a song called Prequel. Love the song. And there is a little bit where he's talking about cut the grass to expose the snakes, right? It's like, that's basically like, I mean, if you follow him on social media, it's kind of, there's a lot of people that want to criticize what he's doing when he like starts making fun of people. But it's like, they're coming at him, insulting him or his fans, and so he responds, and it's what he has available to respond with. So if that's going to be like your physical appearance or whatever, then yeah, he's going to latch onto it. But because you started the shit, right? It's not just go find some random person and make fun of them and tear them down. It's this point of cut the grass to expose the snakes, right? So just you start giving them back what they are putting out into the world, and then they can't take it. That's the world that we live in, right? So there's so much of that with sorry, I have this little friend here now. She's like, why are you still doing that? Can we go over there now? She's not coming over there. She's staying here tonight. But yeah, it's like, if that's what you're putting out there, then yeah, I'm all about sending it back. You know, and okay, so I watched this other thing, Slaughter to Prevail. Alex Terrible there was a video that I saw. He was like part of this podcast thing, and he was talking about a tattoo that he had gotten when he was really into like some esoteric things, and apparently, I don't know if he just didn't know the the negative connection to the symbol at the time, but like I think what it made sense of from the little bit of it that I saw was talking about the swastika, right? So Nazi symbol, but it wasn't originally a Nazi fucking symbol, right? But it was, there again, an example of something getting hijacked to be made into something else, so you don't get the original point of it. And it's in my symbols book, but I don't remember exactly what it references. I wanted to say something about the four directions and all that, but I'd have to look it up. But anyway, the follow-up video was, because of course somebody latched onto that and made a comment about, he doesn't want me to exist. And he goes on and is making this big deal about, he goes, who are you? I don't care if you exist. It's like, just like this whole thing. It's like the sense that the victim mentality thing, right? It's like we have been taught to just, we're supposed to be the victims. But then also, because, like that person was the one that went out of the way to say something and disregard the full context of what was being talked about in the podcast, and just the assumption that he doesn't want me to exist kind of a thing. And then, he just responds with, I don't care if you exist. Who are you? Right? So it's like, we have other shit to worry about. But if we're getting caught in the victim mentality all the time, which, hey, there is a big reason that my channel has been what it has been, because it's me working my way through a lot of that, through, making sense of all the ways that I was eventually stopping myself from doing anything worthwhile because of just what I'd been taught to believe about myself, and about the world around me. So, yes. Anyway, 1, 2, 3. She's got this cat toy and she's giving me dirty looks. Like, what are you gonna do about it? Yeah. She's cute though. Anyway, on that note, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this up because this is getting kind of long, and it took me long enough to start. Anyway, at some point in time, I'm going to be talking about more of this stuff because, I think there's a lot more to it. However, I guess part of this is I'm not fully ready to I guess, go there straight away, you know, in the case of the people that I don't want finding my stuff and don't want getting to the heart of my message and to the heart of who I am yet. The ones that I'm still kind of, you know, if I take forever to get to the point, most of those fall away, I would assume, right? Because why are you going to watch an hour and a half of some girl talking if she bores you right away? Right? So for me, that feels like a good time to, you know, if you don't want to be here, check yourself out, you know, and miss the good stuff, right? But I'm working on it because I spent all day knowing that I wanted to talk more about the metal stuff, but at the same time, not fully ready to, or not really knowing how to, I guess, get into it without the random shit with dogs and plants today. So I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I'm working on it. I'm trying to figure it out. You know, I did that video the other day talking about if I'm not reverting to the negative all the time, then what am I talking about? Well, this stuff more and more so, but I still got to navigate my way through, right? Still got to get, I guess, beyond the discomfort of the talking about stuff that a lot of people are going to think sounds silly, but that's okay. No, if I don't resonate with somebody, then that's fine time for them to not be here and not want to continue watching anything else that I have to offer. So when I do get to the point, they're not around to catch it. So, yeah. Anyway, on that note, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.